everyone. Today I thought I would do a get ready with me video, which I know is not a thing that booktubers do, but you know. The thing I want to discuss today while I assemble the items is new adult books, harmful relationships, and how there needs to be an overhaul in the content that we're now seeing with a lot of romance books. This is mainly going to focus on a book that I read recently, meaning like last year, Colleen Hoover's book, November 9. I've had a lot of issues with it, so I posted a Goodreads review talking about it. So just letting you know in this video there will be spoilers for November 9, but also a trigger warning for rape and domestic violence. I kind of wanted to go into the things in that book and why I think they're not okay. And if you love November 9, Colleen Hoover's your favorite author, it's fine. Like, this video is not an attack on you. It's your choice what you want to read. And if you can read it and accept that there's issues with it, it's golden. There's so many discussions about liking things that are problematic, and feel free to go look up blog posts and videos on that, because that's fine. I'm just gonna jump into one of the scenes in the book that bothered me. There's a scene in the middle of the book. She's at his place, but she's getting a taxi to go back to the airport. She's leaving and getting in the car, and he says something to the effect of, "I've never wanted to physically hurt a girl before, but I wanted to push her down on the pavement and hold her down so she wouldn't leave." That was never really addressed afterward. He just kind of thought it, and then we moved on. And then later on in the book, she's out on a date with a guy. He shows up and he's like, "What's good, Miley?" She's drunk, but he ends up dragging her away from her date because he's jealous or whatever. He takes her like down a hall and into a storage closet. They start talking and she's like, "I moved on from you, like stop being such a creep." But then he ends up kissing her and she says no, and then he says, "I'm trying, ask me again." But she said no, and he kept kissing her and like shoving his hand down her pants. And that's the scene that I talked about a lot in that review, and that's the scene that Colleen is changing. Whether or not you agree, I'm right all the time. Books have effects on readers, even more so young readers. New adult is marketed to older teens and people in their early 20s, which is still a really crucial stage for like brain development. So we're not done growing by then. We're still learning, we're still making connections, we're still figuring our lives out and dating for the first time and settling down, and we're in a transitory part of our life where the media we consume really has an effect on how we perceive a lot of things. And I can bet you $1 million people younger than 18 have read this book. There's probably early teens out there that have picked up this book. The main argument is it's just fiction. Like, this is just a fiction story. No one's actually gonna take this to heart. Even if that was abusive, it's just fiction. Like, we can decipher between real life and entertainment purposes, which I want to refute and I disagree with. The media is very impressionable onto us, and I think especially when you're marketing your books toward young readers, it becomes even more crucial that you understand that and see the effects of your work. I think writing something saying it doesn't have a message, it's just entertainment, is wrong. Like, nothing is purely entertainment. There's always something to be taken from something. Girls will read that and think that's okay for a guy to do. Furthermore, it kind of becomes not only that's okay for him to do, that's cute, it becomes that's romantic. Because when you're hiding scenes like that in a romance story saying this book is about two people falling in love and there might be a little bit of angst in it, but at the end of the day they're falling in love with each other and they're gonna be together forever, folding into that statements and threats of physical violence and non-consensual touching is really concerning. Because not only does it exist in the first place, it's between two people that the reader is to assume are falling in love and have an intimate relationship. And it's not just fiction. Look at any book that has affected you as a person, and look at any video that says the most life-changing books. Like, as much as you want to say I watched that and didn't get anything out of it, it has underlying subtle messages that we all take away from them. And feeding those to teenagers who are still figuring out romance and how it's all supposed to work and being comfortable with themselves and learning how to navigate relationships and boys and girls or whoever you want to date, it's a very fragile time, and it's very much tailored by what we see in the media. How often do you see a tweet that's a screenshot of the Notebook and you're like, oh, I want a relationship like that? And that's, the media dictates what's normalized. Is the Notebook a good example of what romance should be? I mean, at the beginning of the movie, he hangs off of a Ferris wheel and threatens threatens to kill himself if she doesn't go out with him. Just reminding you. But yet it's considered this masterpiece and every girl wants a guy like Ryan Gosling, you know? So even if girls aren't consciously thinking, oh well, this isn't gonna happen to me, this is just fiction, if enough people read that book, if enough people consume it, and if enough people buy into that, it's going to become, this is what's okay and this is what romance is supposed to look like. To kind of distance myself from that a little bit, I'm gonna go into my relationship with Twilight. As a little tweenling, as a youngster, I would die for Twilight. I was and am hardcore Team Edward. I dreamed about Twilight at night. I wanted it. I wanted that for my life so bad. And it was exactly that. It wasn't that like, oh, I enjoyed this series. I wanted it so bad. I would go to bed crying that I wasn't Bella Swan. It was the life that I wanted because I was 12, 13, 14 when I was obsessed with Twilight. And I was desperate for a love like Bella's and Edward's, and it was just so amazing to me. And I wanted a guy that could protect me, and I wanted someone that cared about me that much, and I wanted someone who did all these things for me. When I read the series, I never was exposed to the ideology that maybe that's not what romance should be. That's not what's normal. That's not what's healthy. That's not what should be desirable. As I grew older then, I realized, oh, this is problematic. Men should not dictate who I see, when I see them, at what time I see them, among other things in that series, but I never knew that whenever I read it. I was just thinking, oh, he's some amazing guy who just wants me to be safe and he's so hot, and like that was the entirety of the argument. And I never had anyone to refute that and say that's not what you should want, that's unhealthy. Which is exactly what's happening with this, is it's being sold as this is romance, this is what every girl should want. If it's problematic, ignore it because this is what society wants, this is what girls think is cute, and therefore it's okay. No one ever tells you it's wrong. So I spent 5 years of my life thinking I want a boyfriend who will watch me sleep at night, who doesn't want me to hang out with other guys because he's so protective of me. And that was normal to me, and now that's unfathomable to me that I would constrain myself to someone who would be like that. You can still make a strong vampire that lets a girl be independent. It's not like they're exclusively confined to being this ultra masculine, overprotective dude. There's people out there that like relationships where there's a power imbalance. They find comfort and romance out of a male being dominant to them, which I'm not shaming at all. It's just those types of relationships, that's erotica. BDSM, controlling people, relationships where you're not allowed to interact with other people or there's restrictions on what a girl can do based on how a guy feels, that's not a normal teenage relationship. That's not healthy. There's places where that's appropriate and that would be fine to indulge in, but you shouldn't be exposing teenagers to those themes and telling them this is normal. Some people are going to say, well, that's what I want. There's a population of women out there, clearly, because the book has such a high rating, that are into that and that want that. But it just makes me curious how many of those women understand the implications of that type of relationship and or are able to recognize and call out, hey, I like this, but I know it's not the healthiest option for 12-year-old girls to aspire to be. And I don't think we have that presence of mind in that arena. But those alpha males who just want women to be in their pockets and they don't want them to discuss with anyone or be available to anyone else, that controlling, concerning, and should not be available for young girls to think, hey, I want that. That's what every girl needs. I just think there's a lack of discussion around problematic men in books because whenever I was in high school, whenever I was a teenager, whenever I was obsessed with Edward Cullen, there was no one that would stand up and tell me the relationship that you aspire to have will suffocate you. I don't think it's even the responsibility of the people around me and the internet to tell me, hey, this thing in this book is bad. Let's go before then. Let's back up. It's the author's responsibility to put intact in the book messages that say this is bad, don't have this, or don't put it in the book at all if you want to give someone a romance to aspire to. I mean, who am I with the feminist propaganda telling you what to do with your book? When as a responsibility as an author, especially to young people, it's crucial that that be explained to kids and teenagers and you tell them this happened, this is no good. Instead of it being, he pulled me into a closet and started making out with me. It was so cute. No. try, he pulled me into a closet, started making out with me, and I screamed and called the police. If you have those characters in your book, but you don't want them to be a bad guy and you want them to be the protagonist of your story and the love interest and the guy that the girl loves so much, shame on you, honestly. One of the things that I was running across whenever I was doing my review for this book was people were like, oh, so you don't want anyone to write about rape in books ever? That's censorship. No. You can write about rape in books, by all means. There's some amazing books that exist that talk about rape, but they talk about rape in the way that rape is a traumatic event. Rape is so abhorrent to the level that it gives women actual PTSD and triggers. Colleen Hoover wrote a scene where the girl said no, stop, and the guy continued putting his hand down her pants. And she immediately went, oh wait, but this feels good. I'll keep going. And that gives girls and boys a really, really dangerous message. That shows women to succumb to it. It's sad. I think it's really harmful and really dangerous. If more men were to read this book and see that the way females in her book continually submit to men, it gives people really dangerous ideas. But bear in mind that your readers are young. What you've made contributes to an atmosphere of what's acceptable and what's not in society. If you write a scene where a girl tells a guy to stop and he keeps going, you're contributing to a mindset that girls should submit to unwanted advances, because that's what romance is. And I would like to pose an adamant put that thing back where it came from, or so help me, to that kind of mindset. And this might be a little bit of a blurred line because I just think this topic is close to my heart, because I grew up idealizing a relationship that now I know is not a healthy relationship. And again, this is all assuming that the girl in the relationship wants that freedom and wants to be treated as an equal by her partner. I guess I should also disclaim that all of this I'm talking about is with heterosexual relationships. No matter the context, there's no situation in which a guy should pull a girl away from her date drunk into a storage closet at a bar, start making out with her, and then not stop when she says stop. Like, even if she playfully says stop, that's what contributes to the police on rape cases thinking, well, was she consenting? Because if you say, oh, well, he didn't stop because she playfully said stop, it doesn't matter. We get so frustrated at these court cases where the guys are always let go or they're not guilty because there's not enough evidence. And it's because books like this that promote the idea that even if a girl's joking and says stop and he doesn't stop, that's totally fine because they're just joking around and they're in love and it's fine. I'm gonna wrap it up now while I highlight. I'm glad Colleen is changing the book. I'm glad that we're getting a little facelift, but I think there was a lot more work to go. Let me just put on some of this lipstick and we're done. I really don't have any final comments to make other than just be attentive to what you recommend young girls. Be attentive to what you write yourself. Be attentive to what you're consuming. Be aware and be ready to critique when relationships become something that poisons rather than uplifts women. Alrighty, well, with all of that being said, the makeup is all done now. Hope you enjoyed not only me ranting, but if you have any thoughts on this discussion, you can let me know down below. I'm always willing to talk about feminism. Yeah, I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!